Welcome to Deeply Unscripted. I'm your host, Clarissa Medina, a cognitive behavioral practitioner helping people break free from limiting beliefs through rewiring thought patterns. By using these methods, I facilitate an individual stepping into true transformation. Another excellent way to spark transformation and personal growth is through authentic conversations that challenge us to upgrade our thinking and perspectives. Here on the podcast, we explore profound subject matter and make room for a diversity of viewpoints. In doing so, we create a community that honors everyone right where they are in their own compelling story. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Alison Hawsey, an intuitive transformation coach and founder of AlisonHawsey.com. Alison has dedicated her life to helping people break through limitations, step into their true intuition, mindset shifts, and personal development. She guides people toward lasting change by doing this. In this episode, we'll dive into her journey, the power of intuition, and how transformation is available to all of us if we're willing to lean in. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, Alison, as an intuitive transformation life coach, you guide individuals to reconnect with their inner wisdom and embrace authentic change. So, let's
Mhm.
talk for a moment about those words intuition, inner wisdom, and authentic change, and how these make up a large totality of a person.
Ooh, so juicy. I love this topic. I'm a super fan of energy work, which is kind of one of the beginning pieces to what brought me to knowing what intuition is, because intuition is our inner knowing. It's that piece of us that we have. And I've learned through my process and diving deeper into intuition and working with more people that that piece of us is almost taught out of us from a young age, right? We need to think and feel what others want so that they're more comfortable, which has then brought a lot of people who I talk to a place of knowing that, wow, I am not reaching for my stars. I'm trying to hang stars so other people can see that and they can approve of that, which is, ooh, that can be a little tricky to navigate when shifting away from the conditioned behaviors that we've been taught to the authenticity. And to me, authenticity begins with being vulnerable. I mean, I think everyone has heard about authenticity and everyone has heard about vulnerability, but I think they go hand in hand. If we are not being vulnerable and honoring our truth and respecting who we are and loving who we are, that is that vulnerability coming through, which provides that clarity of the authenticity of who each one of us is and how we navigate going forward.
I agree with all of that. That's so good. Right now, these are buzzwords that we're hearing a lot, and authenticity is right at the top of the list of those buzzwords. I was having a conversation the other day with someone that is not good with confrontation. And
Mm,
she said, if I'm being my authentic self, I need to tell this person, hey, you're kind of not holding up your end of the bargain here. And she said, it won't be confrontational. I just need to authentically have that conversation. The problem is that that person, if they're not in their authentic self, is not going to be able to receive it. And so it got me thinking about the hard ask that authentism is because
mhm.
everybody wants it, but few people really know how to be authentic. And I think fewer people know how to receive authenticity from someone else and not be offended, not have
Mhm.
opinions. So really, two people have to be, but both of them have to be authentic if they're going to have that give and take in a relationship without being offended or hurt feelings or be upset about something. Would you agree with?
I do. And I think it goes a little bit deeper than that too, because things that I've uncovered, not only just for myself personally, but I've worked with when I'm working with a client, there's kind of two key elements, or three really, is what are you investing in? So if I am working with a client and I'm investing more in their outcome than they are, they won't change. They will not feel the changes that they desire. They won't. And so knowing whose outcome are you navigating is really the answer should be yours. That's the only outcome that you're in charge of. Investing in, are you investing in your outcome, or are you also investing in making sure you have the expectational meeting of somebody else's feeling, which again comes with a lot of limiting beliefs, right? Because if I am not going to share with you something and be authentic with you, it's probably because I'm already worried about what the outcome, the anticipatory outcome is going to be, right? Which means I'm not thinking about my outcome. I'm worried about what somebody else is what their behavior is going to be, right?
Yeah.
If I am coming from that powerful place within me, it's not fierce and fighting, it's calm and powerful, meaning I have the compassion and grace to deliver what I need to say and also allow the other person their feelings, their thought, and just hear them for what it is, but not take a tie and tie myself to that, right? Just as if I'm fierce and fighting and I'm having a rough moment, I go back and apologize a lot of times,
Sure.
because I'm like, whoa, I was not my best self, not an excuse. This was going on. I probably should have just say, can we table this until tomorrow, till I'm in a better space? But we don't do that, right? We have this society of quick responses, right? And if I don't say it, I'm going to forget it. Or I need to get my point across, or I need to be heard and I need to be seen. And those things are fine, but that also goes along with validation, which is also a limiting belief.
Mhm.
Needing to be validated by something. Well, I need to tell them how I feel and I need to
Yeah.
get this point across. And they need to feel as bad as I want them to feel, right?
Exactly.
Well, guess what? My feelings are my responsibility and yours are yours. So I might say something that might be abrasive to you, and that's actually to me gold. And if somebody said something to me and it's abrasive to me, I'm like, ooh, that is gold. Now I recognize that as gold because that's where I got to get curious to understand why is their feeling causing me pain? I am causing me pain. I'm the one holding on to that because I've got work to do, right? It's not their fault if I feel bad. I mean, I've had conversations where just recently I was having a conversation with actually, I wasn't having a conversation. I was listening to who is unloading and unloading and just, we go to that space and I understand that. That's why we have, friendships and relationships to do
Mhm.
that. But this person was getting more ramped up and angry because I wasn't getting ramped and angry with her.
Yes.
And I didn't understand why she was ramped up and angry, but it wasn't also for me to understand. That's hers, not mine. To the point where she was in my face getting so angry with me for not being frustrated that I had to walk away.
Oh, wow.
This has nothing to do with me, and it's not my responsibility to be angry because you are. I need to protect my energy and myself in this situation. And that wasn't easy.
No, it isn't easy.
It's not, and it didn't feel, not that it felt good, but it did feel better to walk away. And in my calmness, and I send her love and grace, and hopefully compassion can blanket over her. But that's also not my responsibility. A lot of us feel like we have to take that on for others.
Yes. So, three things I'm thinking of. Number one, I want all my listeners to remember that abrasive conversation is gold.
Yeah.
Girl, I will. And then the question, whose outcome, I wrote it down, whose outcome are you navigating and investing in?
Mhm.
So I think that's tied to cultural conditioning.
Yes.
Obviously, we want to care for other people. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with looking out for, especially people that you're in a serious relationship with, whether it's marriage or friendship, sisters, brothers, all these different relational dynamics and caring for another person's feelings and being compassionate, all of those things. But where did we get off track with not? I realized that our parents were not teaching us to be in relationship with ourselves,
Mhm.
probably because they didn't have the tools themselves to be able to teach that to us. But the tools were there to teach us how to overly look out for somebody else. So, where did kind of the train come off the track, do you think?
I don't know if it was ever on a truck, honestly. I really don't, because there's a piece I have a program that I work with people on. It kind of has a method to get you to slow down, show up for yourself, and recognize things. And a piece of this is relationship threats. And I have folks sit back. It's kind of a twofold. So, there's fight or flight, fight, flight, freeze, reactions. And I have a different 3F. It's facts, feeling it, and then figuring it out. Meaning, when we're going into a situation with someone, right, and trying to navigate this, the first thing we do is typically worry about what somebody else is going to think about our behavior, our reaction, or something, right? Or
We
we,
cast our whole conversation around it.
right, exactly. To me, that's illusionary because we have no idea. Even though we might have known this person for 50 years, we truly don't know what their reaction is going to be. And we're not giving them the chance to have a new reaction, right? Thinking about this, I sat myself down, building this program, and I'm like, okay, I want to look at where I came from, my biological relationships. Everyone started from someone, right? Then just dissect that factually, like who are my parents, how were they raised, and then put my feelings into it. If I'm putting my feelings above the facts, that's illusion,
Okay.
right? I'm making up stuff. They might be real. I might actually believe they're real, but if I'm not taking the time to get to know someone, then I can have those authentic feelings about them, right? And then notice the solution if I want to go forward, stand still, or just let it go, right? So then next would be the second one is appointed relationships that all of us have, right? We have, maybe we're adopted or fostered. So that's an appointed relationship. Then we have our extended family, if we have that. Then we have our clergy, we have our doctors, we have our teachers, we have those friendships from our family that were brought in. All of those relationships were pushed, to hug and love those people because they've been in our life from the beginning. And even though we don't know them, we might not know them, never get to know them, but we're taught to listen to them because they're your elders,
That's right.
right? And then we continue to grow up and we get to become of age and we get to choose the fourth realm of relationships, our chosen relationships. So, are we choosing our biological to carry forward? Are we choosing any and all of those appointed relationships? We get to choose. We are an adult. I get to choose who I'm having in my life. However, that has a huge umbrella of guilt over it,
Yes, it does.
right? And all those habitual conditioned behaviors. Unless we can put that umbrella down and truly see, right? Go to that gold and unpack those things. Do we want those people in our life? And by understanding biological, appointed, and chosen, then the fourth relationship is ourself. And really understanding and trusting the whole core of who we are, even when we make mistakes, because we're human and it's going to happen. It's understanding for each one of us because each one of us has a unique path and journey that we've been on. And that's how I coach a little differently. I give you tips and tricks and I go through these methodologies, but it's for you to invest in that. So if you are not invested in the change that you desperately want, which involves making new choices, it's not going to happen.
Even a huge part of cognitive behavioral therapy, you mentioned we anticipate the reaction from somebody else. A huge part of that is it doesn't matter what history tells you. about your interactions, about events that have happened to you. That does not mean that every interaction, that every event forward is going to look the same, feel the same, even if it's with the same person. So we're not allowing them to have a different reaction. We've already got it figured out up here. I'm going to say this. They're going to say this. This is almost like we have a pre-recorded conversation running in our mind of exactly how we believe the conversation is going to go.
Exactly. Exactly. And not only are we denying them a response, we're denying ourselves a new response. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who might have a strained relationship with a parent or a grandparent or somebody, and they could be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they go back to see that parent and they're like, God, it feels like I'm 18 again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's like they shrivel themselves down. They become smaller because of all that anticipatory feelings.
Right.
You know?
That's a good point. So it sounds like we've just become a society of atmosphere managers because we're anticipating all of these outcomes, whether it's the conversation that I have to have with my husband, the conversation I have to have with my teenager, with my boss. We're anticipating the outcomes of all of these. And so we are managing our words, trying to adjust an outcome that hasn't happened yet, in all of these interactions that we have throughout the day. So it sounds like we just turned into a people that we're just managing atmospheres and we're being people handlers.
Yeah. Or silos. I call them a lot of silos too, because that's one of the conversations. I don't know if you have this conversation often with people is about boundaries. I need to work on my boundaries. Well, my boundaries. And I have a very different take on that because if we're at work and we're at home and we're with our kids and then we're with our kids' friends and then we're with our neighbors and then we're going on vacation with strangers, wherever. There's so many different silos and we've got to manage all these boundaries. It's like, okay, you're one human. You want to have multiple boundaries for each person. That's fine, but I'm exhausted. I used to do that. I was exhausted by that. No, I am me all the time. Period. Whether I'm having a good day or a bad day.
Sure.
But I don't managing those separate, but well, so and so is going to feel this way. Great. Let them feel that way. My son said something to me once. This is a few years ago. He said, I could tell something was going on. He's like, well, I don't want to make you mad. I don't want you to get mad. And I said, well, I didn't realize you were that powerful that you could control my feelings. Like, whoa. Even powers was your superpower. Like, how do you do that? How do you control my feeling? Let me know. And he's like, well, I just have a feeling. I go, that's fine. You might have a feeling, but give me the chance. Give me a chance. And I said, and if you give me a chance, I'm going to give you a chance.
Nice. Very nice.
That really woke me up to that. We do not give people a chance.
We see how somebody acts in one instance and we just kind of write the script for the rest of our life with that person, whatever that might be, whether that's the coworker that we work with and that we see 8 to 5 or it doesn't matter. We've written the script and this is how this person acts and this is how I act in this way that it is.
I do understand this is where the boundary comes in too, is if you do have a situation where there is a person who repeatedly behaves in a certain negative, disrespectful way, the question isn't, when are they going to change? Why won't they change? They need to change so I'm more comfortable. The question is, why do you keep going back to spend time with that person? I understand you might have made a commitment and it's a spouse. Well, guess what? If they're not doing anything different for their outcome, that is on them. And that's on you to continue going into that, right? And that's why today's world is, I think there's more gifts than not. We have more coaches, more therapies, more modalities than we have ever had, and more touch points with technology to access those. But yet we're still sitting back waiting for someone else to change so that we can be happier.
We have a lot to still take responsibility for. That's another part of CBT. If there's an area of your life where you're waiting for either a person or a circumstance to be right For you to be able to do XYZ, then that's an area that you still had not taken responsibility for because
Yeah.
you're believing that something externally needs to be right for you to be right, basically.
Right. Yeah. And that's another question. That's another goal point for me. Why do you need to be right?
Yeah.
If you can't answer that question of yourself, because that's part of validation. So when somebody does recognize you for something, it's probably not felt because you weren't open enough to feel that beauty come in from someone because you're sitting over here waiting to be validated for something else.
Exactly. Since you mentioned that you don't think from a historic standpoint that this is not a skill we've handed down, just historically, from parent to child, to be in right relationship with self before trying to be in right relationship with others.
Mhm.
So I fully believe that we are entering the age of the empath.
Mhm.
We have eras, and
Mhm.
coming out of an era that was domineering and very prone to war, prone to argue, prone to be divisive. Well, I'm looking at that, kind of pairing that with, you mentioned that we have more modalities than ever. We have had psychology for a long time,
Mhm.
yet we have not seen, there have been breakthroughs in some things, but we have not seen major breakthrough in relationship to self,
Mhm.
being a handler for other people versus controlling atmospheres where we have to manage our words, effectively managing somebody else's response to our words.
Mhm.
Despite the fact that we've had psychology for a long time, there's been a lot of personal growth collectively that has not happened. Now, what I'm seeing in the coaching industry, and that does include counselors, that does include therapists, to throw shade on psychology. What I'm saying is that it seems like the coaching industry has been more positioned, more poised to bring about these kinds of changes that you're talking about. We all should be in touch with our own feelings. The more we can relate to somebody else and where they're coming from. The increase in modality, the new era, this era that we're headed into, where now we're recognizing the importance of feelings and intuition and inner wisdom. And it's almost like in previous eras, this was not possible. Like the conditions weren't right for it almost.
I think too, just thinking about upbringing is with the conditioned behavior, right? So we have generation upon generation upon generation telling us about what we need to do, who we need to be, and those things, right? And it makes sense that that's been happening because cyclical with
Yes.
relationships. But then you have throughout the generations, and there's so many teachers and leaders and that we can read about that are like, yeah, that doesn't feel right. Something about that is off and it doesn't feel right. Why does it feel better for me to listen to myself and to understand that I don't like to wear red? I like to wear blue. Like, because you tell me I need to do this, I need to do this. Because you tell me I need to pray this way, it doesn't feel right. I feel God everywhere. I don't need to go on Sunday. I talk to him every day, everywhere I am. And it's the waking up to those pieces and then having those other, I call them curated, like the people in our life are curated, right? Because they're chosen eventually and to be in our life that they might be like, huh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And when we have an elder, and I call them youngards, right? Elders, and they're listening to some of the youngers, right? Because the elders have so much information. I think what they have been through is very important, whether we agree with it or not, because they have seen things that we might never see.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They're going to have experiences. They might have learned how to navigate through something so horrific that will never be able to comprehend. right? So there's different levels of experience that we're all going to have. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong to teach. Obviously, I love teaching and I love mentoring and assistance, but I also love, as a mentor, listening to another person share their experience and their idea of a solution and a direction that might be completely different than what I would try, and especially with my kids, listening to them and what their passions are and understanding that college might not be the right thing for them. It might be going off and inventing something that's going to change the world.
Yeah.
You know what? Don't go to college. Go do what you feel is more passionate for you. That's going to be more sustainable. And I think the other piece of it is that through the teachings of be this, you should do this, the should shields is what I call them, and should and shouldn't do, right? Is that we have not necessarily just taught how to listen to the intuition, but we haven't taught people how to make choices.
That's right.
It's like they can't make a choice because they're so terrified of failing. They're afraid of the unknown. Guess what? Today is the unknown of yesterday. So you're facing the unknown every single day. And they just don't know how to fail. Guess what? We all had to fail. Oh, that made us more resilient.
Yes.
And that broadened our capacity for resilience, for that tenacity. So it's fascinating, the direction, and just to sit back and watch and listen to some people. And I allow people to, you want to get angry about something, you go for that. If that fighting is going to make you feel better and change something within you, great. Hopefully it delivers that outcome that you need. If it doesn't, then regroup and figure that out.
Yeah.
But not everyone wants to do that. Why? Because they haven't been taught how to make a choice.
Yeah. No, you're right. Okay. So you threw down the gauntlet on deconstruction.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the faith movement right now is having a moment.
Yeah.
Because our generation, particularly, I'm not saying ours is the only generation,
Right.
but our generation, particularly right now, is deconstructing from a lot of things.
Yeah.
Some of these forced relationships that you're talking about, deconstructing from religious programming.
Mhm.
So there's religious programming, familial programming, cultural programming that for a long time we've just accepted. And this is just what you do. This is just how you act.
Mhm.
And you ignore this and this and this, or you deal with it, under your blanket with a flashlight and nobody else is around with a box of Oreos. You're right. On my mother's self-care. There, you eat a gallon of ice cream and then you cry when nobody is looking. But when you come out of your bedroom, you're put back together. I do not believe that the religious deconstructing is any less a part of this. Just on the topic of intuition alone, my experience up until probably the last 5 years, my experience with intuition was taught to me by the church, and women only have it. Men do not have it. This is why God gives a woman to a man. It's because men don't have it, women have it, and you have to go and be that for your husband. And outside of a religious context, intuition may have been talked about in New Age circles.
Mhm.
I don't know if they use the same terminology or if they went more with inner wisdom or inner knowing, but we're probably talking about the same thing, regardless of what word they used for it. So give some conversation to that religious context of intuition.
Right.
It's only for women. It's God's gift to women because we are the subservient sex. So we submit, but our reward is we actually have the goods because we've got the intuition. It sounds ridiculous saying.
It sounds so ridiculous, but there's a lot of people that believe in that. And it's crazy for them to think otherwise. And it's crazy for us to feel this way, right? That does not make sense. And it's not for me to teach what God wants for everyone. It's for me to listen. And I have a different terminology that I use for that too, is I call it SHUG, spirit, higher power, universe, and God. And then I also say I have me time, which is where I go into nature and connect with Mother Earth. I grew up, my parents were raised strict Catholic, and they said they were not going to do that to me. So when I was with other family members, they would be taking me to church and doing all the things. And I wanted to fit in. Being young, I wanted to fit in. I desperately wanted to fit in. I do remember going into, I still today love going into churches because I think they're built with beautiful intention. It's the people inside that we want, really. It's their dominant. And I think the dominance really comes from the lack of control because of fear. I don't think God wants us to be afraid. I don't think he wants us to bow down. That's my feeling. Somebody else might feel different, and that's fine. And I have to allow that because that is what they believe. For me, the intuition is one of the core elements of ourself. Everybody has it, but no, are we taught to listen? We're taught to listen out here to the chaos and clutter and the noise and be afraid of that. Be afraid of who you think you are. And I think that's changing. I believe it's changing so much. I do believe the capacity of each individual is different. Some don't have the capacity to think and feel for themselves. They don't. I've witnessed it myself. I've seen people stay in abusive relationships and not understand why, but they feel like it's more comfortable for them. And
Absolutely.
it's a choice they're making. And it's nothing that I can do. I cannot change somebody else's outcome. They have to want it for themselves. And so I think with the modalities and with the opening and the conversation of energy, it floors me when somebody is like, you do Reiki? What does that even mean? Like, how does that energy work? What are you giving me? What are you taking from me? I'm like, I'm not giving you anything. I'm not taking anything from you. It's your responsibility. I'm just a conduit for meditation and prayer and for you to sink into your own energy. Well, we don't understand energy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you have one of these? Energy. How are we communicating? How are we doing this right here?
Yeah.
Energy. It is so powerful. And just the connection with that piece. Imagine if you sink into more of it, it opens up so many more realms of belief and knowing and feeling and security and honoring the self and respect and truth and all the yummy stuff in life.
Right. I think we have a very feeble relationship with energy. And when you were talking about if you're around somebody that wants to get angry and kind of throw a fit, I think that's what they're searching to do. They have this charge, this electrical, this energetic charge, and we got to get rid of it. But because we have this very clunky relationship with energy, we don't really understand it. We don't know, how do we release it? Well, we do what feels good, and sometimes we do just what feels good right in that moment. So I think that's what they're trying to get that charge out.
Yeah.
The body keeps the score.
Well, no. Wait, do I have it? I don't know.
It kind of talks about that, trauma through therapy and
Mhm.
hurt, but there's an energetic charge that if you don't release that, you can do all the talk therapy that you want to do, and you can change your thoughts about it and you can change your words about it. But if you don't do something with that energy, going to show up in another way, and that's really sickness and disease.
Yes. 100%.
So
100%.
I think
Yeah.
people are having those kind of angry outbursts. They're trying to come to terms with this energetic release that they need to have, but because Nobody knows how to teach it appropriately. We don't know how to release it appropriately.
Right. And it's different for everyone. That's the other thing. Just because I might release something in a certain way does not mean it's going to be the right way for you. And that's why there's so many opportunities to learn different ways, to listen to the self, to know what that piece is going to be. I was just recently having a conversation and I was describing the connection with intuition. Some people who are not doing the healing piece of it, right? So to me, healing is a huge piece of the clarity to allow our intuition to come forward. This idea came to my mind and now it's telling me I need to share it with you too. So we were talking about how we can do all the things, we can do the modalities, but if we're not sinking into what needs to be released, recognized, released to be activated into something new, right? It's almost like if you're looking at life with plastic, you are building up all of these experiences. They're plastic bags, they're bottles, they're a boat, a table. Like, I mean, how much plastic is out there? You are literally gathering all this plastic. You're gathering it and gathering it. It is not going to do anything but sit there. So think of it as if you change your mindset to think of healing and all that you've gathered are trees. They could be leaves, they could be limbs, they could be a branch, a giant branch, they could be a whole entire tree, including the trunk, even the root system. When that begins to die off, it decomposes and transmutes into earth, which then can allow something else to bloom.
Yeah.
If you're not allowing things to decompose, it's just going to continue building up like plastic. And now we're cleaning up so much plastic in the world, right? Because we're not thinking about long term. We want the quick fix.
Yes.
Healing takes time. If you have been complaining, if you had trauma that happened decades ago and you are still hugging it,
Yeah.
there is no one's fault for that but yours. And not that it's even a fault, but it's time to recognize the possibility of imagine what your life would be if you started allowing the decomposition to happen of that trauma, the wisdom and the beauty that could come out of propelling your life forward. And some people do that beautifully. There's so many out there doing that, but there's more hugging on to the plastic.
Oh, that's such a good analogy. I love that trees analogy. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what is your personal story with this? What was your own pivotal moment where you knew that this is the work that I want to invest myself in, that I want to spend my time doing, that I want to dedicate myself to?
Mm. I had a heart condition develop that really ramped up about 7, 8 years ago and was causing a lot of anxiety for myself, for my family. And there was kind of a moment I had that I woke up and I'm like, you know what? I need to start doing things very differently. I had the great corporate jobs, which I love to work. I love to create, did marketing, communication, and project management for years. Loved it, enjoyed it. But the piece that was missing was for me, I would know things that I needed to do to be successful. I knew how to communicate with many different personalities, which not a lot of people know how to do that. Right. And I'm like, how do I know how to do these things? But even going back younger, I've always had these intuitive thoughts, not understanding what they were, just knowing something, knowing things could be different, trying to manage them and help them because that's what I was taught to do. And I'm like, no, that's not the right thing. And anytime I would do something helpful for me, like move across the country, some people didn't like that. How can you leave your family? Like, oh my gosh, that's just not the right thing to do. And I'm like, but it's the right thing for me. Just knowing and opening those things up, I had left corporate America. I'd stayed home with my kids and then started a small business doing marketing communications for small business. And my last client was a life coach. She had just become a life coach. She's this beautiful woman. I was doing her branding and her marketing and all the things, creating all the showboat stuff for her. She could not make a decision to save her life. She's like, I need to go pull all these friends and do all these things. I need to check in with everyone else. And I'm thinking, Do you? It's your business. Just do it. You've created something beautiful here. Just go with it. And she's like, gosh, you would really be a really great coach. And I'm thinking, I've been coaching for years, not knowing that that's what I've been doing. And I've been working with energy, specifically understanding it more since 2002, and have had multiple intuitives say, you need to be doing this because you're so good at this. You have the gift. And I'm like, I don't want to. I want this for me, period. Like, I need to work on me. I need to do all my healing for me, knowing. And then I woke up and thought, today's the day I'm going to start working with energy work. And so I just married the two. I did them simultaneously, certificates. Everyone needs accreditation for everything. And it has been the most glorious combination. And it's allowed deeper healing within myself by watching others who are going through their healing. I allow it to happen on their time frame, knowing I had to do that for myself too. And to watch somebody become excited about investing in themselves and seeing their outcomes change, to me, it's like a party celebration.
I don't know if it's that we are quantumly related. I don't know what it is, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's why when people go through their own personal transformation, they go and they seek other people to
Yeah.
help. I hear the stories over and over. When I ask, what was your personal moment? There is usually an illness, a physical illness, or a major life traumatic event. Sometimes a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And as soon as they make it through and kind of come out of the ash of that, then they are going and they're finding people. It's awesome to watch that
Yeah.
and to see people engage with to self-actuate and
Mhm.
engage with life.
Mhm.
I don't get tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I knew that you did Reiki.
Yeah. I love it.
Reiki, as I know it, is typically, and this might just be my limited, narrow experience, is for physical healing. If you have an ailment or if you
Oh.
believe that you have something wrong and maybe you haven't had any success in Western medicine or maybe even homeopathy or naturopathy, I've heard people say, well, I went and I had Reiki done, and that person, that practitioner was able to pick up on this thing. And then I started focusing on that, and now everything is good. But I hadn't experienced it or heard anybody talk about it from personal transformation perspective. How is that different?
I don't think it's necessarily different. I think they go hand in hand. Okay. Because, like we were talking about earlier, energy can get trapped, right? Causing illness. And we have so much illness in our world and so much trapped energy in the world in individuals. And how I was actually introduced to Reiki because I was going through a divorce and I had a major surgery back to back. My friend knew I was highly intuitive. She knew I knew things. And she's like, you just got to meet this woman. I think you're just going to connect. And so I connected with this woman. And it wasn't because I was having anything physical at the time, because I was better. It was very much more emotional for me. Emotions were trapped and I needed to move forward. And I knew needed to. I didn't know how to because I was going to therapy and I'm like, I just keep talking about the same thing over and over. Where's a roadmap for me to go forward? And this is long before I really even knew about coaching. I started going to this woman for energy work, and she was telling me things that only I would know, no one else would know. And how would she know? After the sessions, I would tell her things about herself that only there's no way I would have known. And she's like, you have this intuitive nature with you. Intuition is knowing ourself and being connected with our inner knowing. Being intuitive is opening up a little bit more to feel and hear and sense things of others. For me, it's the higher good. It's never anything dark. I don't allow that into my life, period. That is part of my boundary. That's very solid. I have had people come to me for migraines, for a lot of gut issues, a lot of different things. but they always lead to messages of mental, emotional state of something that needs to be healed, that needs to be recognized. We have to recognize it first. It's not for me to recognize in you. It's for you to recognize and engage with that, even that pain, to unlock it. Let's clean that out. And that is how I work with it. Some people go specifically for just healing a headache or healing something like that, which is fine. But then the headaches come back. My purpose is to invest in yourself, find those blockages that you have, invest in the healing of that so that your outcome is we don't need to talk anymore because it's over unless we're have coffee.
Yeah. I'm not
Oh,
interested in managing symptoms. I want symptoms to
exactly.
go. Yes.
Exactly. But it's not on me. Again, the outcome is on someone else to make sure that they're doing that and knowing that our life is going to change and we're going to continue to transform and expand throughout our life. And so you're going to have another storm that brews within you and it's going to cause something else to come up. And then you're going to have to work through that,
Yeah.
you know?
This is the process of life.
Yeah.
Do you incorporate Reiki in all of the work that you're doing with clients? Or do sometimes you get people that are like, that's kind of woo woo. I don't know about that.
I mean, honestly, I incorporate Reiki into my entire day. It's just energy. It's my intention of my energy. I infuse it into everything I do. But I think having the conversation about the inner knowing and understanding your inner knowing allows you to connect with your energy. Because, like, for instance, when Reiki is happening, it's the transmutation of your energy. It's not mine. So it's not like I'm saying, here's some of my positive. It's not that at all. It's allowing you to relax. And I use actually the word prayer quite often because there are a lot of very faithful people that I will see. And I'm like, look, basically what this is you're going to go into the deepest prayer that you can go into. Right. And I love to pray too. I mean, it's a way for me to connect. And you're going to open up that channel of faith and just allow it because it's energy. It's all energy and it's so yummy and beautiful and just, ooh, you always feel so good afterward.
Yes, right. So then what does working with you look like? Do we do some diagnostics and then we kind of put a plan together and then we start having one-on-one sessions? Does it look a little traditional like that? Or
It can, but I work a little different where I have conversation depending if it's coaching or if it's energy. If it's energy, I go into a place of connection with energy to see what is it before I meet with you, what it is you need. Like if you reach out to me and have a session with me, and I just kind of allow things to come forward. We have time together. I don't like to have a lot of conversation before an energy session because I don't want to be influenced. What happens for me is I will write down many, many things that come to me, that come to my mind that I know are not for me. They're for whoever I am hosting at that time. And I write down the information, I keep notes, I keep everything, and then we'll have an energy session. We'll go through the modality, whether it's in person, I do it over Zoom too, quite often. And then we talk through, and I allow my client to tell me if there's anything, any questions, if there's anything they want to share. And then I will go through all the notes that I have. And it blows my mind still now for what, 8 years that I will write down a whole bunch of things that they are telling me. And I'm like, here it is. And they get the paper, they get to walk away with it. I mean, there's no way I can make it up. It's a fantastic way for them to see what I'm sharing with you. You can do this for yourself. So if you're already feeling and thinking this and this needs to change, then own that and embrace that. When it comes to coaching, a lot of times I will have a conversation with someone before we set up, whether it's a one-on-one session or I have peer group sessions too that I host, which quite honestly, I love groups because if people can see they're not alone,
yeah,
I see change happen so much faster. But I actually interview my clients and I let them talk to me to make sure we're the right fit.
sure.
there are so many of us out there, and I want to make sure that the fit is going to work, meaning I'm going to be honest and direct with you as I hope you are that way with yourself too. So we make sure it works. It works for us. And if I don't feel like you need to see me again, it's up to you. It's up to you to know what you need. It's not up for me to tell you what I think you need.
Right. So I just had a question come up, and this is just kind of personally. I hadn't thought about this before, but what it sounds like you're describing would be a prophetic process.
Mm.
So I'm wondering, are people that are known to be prophetic, are they actually working with energy on some level that maybe they're not aware of?
I
Because
believe
I
that.
think we've probably all had some type of event that maybe we can't 100% explain, that somebody knew something, and sometimes it is in a church context.
Mhm.
You'll have a guest speaker or something that this person is known to have a prophetic word for somebody. I've never heard anybody that was in the prophetic stream. This doesn't mean they don't. My experience has been that they never talked about the prophetic gifting with the energy work, like what you're talking about. I mean, I would say they probably would say it's definitely an inner knowing, but you saying that you're writing this down and you give it to the person, and it's like a testimony because that
Okay.
knows you could not have known this.
Right.
Truly were connecting with me on some other level.
Right.
So, do you think that prophetic gifting and prophetic utterance is involved in energy work and Reiki?
I think it's involved in everyday life. We ignore it and we're taught to not listen to it. It's part of that intuition piece. It's part of that energy piece. I truly believe that. Because think about it in both ways. If you are going to a situation, maybe you're heading to a party, a gathering or something, and you might already have that anticipatory feeling of something. Oh, well, I know Aunt so and so is going to behave this way and I don't like that and blah 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 is going to happen blah blah blah. If you take all of those illusionary thoughts out, because yes, are you going to have historical information? Absolutely. But if you have another unexplainable reason why something is not feeling good, because you've learned how to deal with Aunt so and so, you've learned how to deal with managing the family, but there's this other just deep feeling saying, this is the time I need to just bow out. Imagine if you did bow out and you didn't go. What happens, I know for myself, if I bow out from going to something that everything in me is saying, do not go, I end up opening up even more within myself of what to do and what not to do.
Wow. I would traditionally say, well, my intuition is telling me not to go. I wouldn't have made the connection between that. That's really my own energy that I am working with. You know?
Because
So,
you're pleasing your outcome, you're not pleasing everyone else's outcome.
yes,
Does that make sense?
yes. And even with clients, I'm depending on getting a word of knowledge. And that's the church had taught me that. And I haven't had better terminology for it. I don't always share that, but I depend on getting words of knowledge, words of wisdom that are not told to me. You're connecting some dots for me right now.
Oh,
That is energy that I'm working with it in a way that I did not even understand or realize. Because you're saying that intuition and energy are like you can't separate them.
right. They're hand in hand. Work with this piece called the 9 human elements. And everyone knows what these are. You have your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit, right? Then we have our power, our energy, our senses, our instincts, and our intuition. Together, that's us. We have all parts of those within us. They're all parts of us.
Yeah.
If you're not listening to your senses, you're going to get burned. If you're not listening to your instincts is a reaction to your intuition. It's going to harm your body and your mind and your soul and spirit.
That is so good.
If you're submissive, you're handing out your power. Here, I don't want to manage my power. I want you to manage my power, which means your energy is going to be depleted. So it's a dance. No day is perfect because that doesn't exist. And I do, I don't struggle with religion. There is a good reason to have a space of community that brings people together for a purpose. And I really do believe in that. Some people need it more than others because they
Right.
just don't have the capacity to be open enough to have the unique thoughts and understand them for
So
themselves.
some people want the system. They like
Right,
the
exactly.
system of church.
Right. And there's so much good, I think, that comes out of the community of a religion, just like anything in life. It's the same thing if you looked at a family. You're going to have the beauty of a family, which is a community, and then you're going to have that one person that irritates everyone and would not make course. I mean, it's the same thing, right? You know, so if that is what somebody needs, then go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. I never ever want to say, don't do this because I believe that. No, I want to teach you to believe what you believe. And if
Right.
that's what you need, go all in.
It's about personal freedom.
Yes.
My biggest challenge has been the cultural or the religious programming that I had for, the first 45, 46 years of my life. And I spoke at a fellowship recently about my own deconstruction journey. And I said, honestly, we all should be on a deconstruction journey because we all should be sloughing off old beliefs. Imagine if we were still running on technology information that we had back in the 80s, we would still be all having TRS-80 computers in our homes. I mean, we wouldn't do that. So we should constantly be, you call it decomposition. We should always be decomposing off of what doesn't serve us any longer. I have never felt so healthy in body and mind as I have felt since I started the deconstruction journey. I'm right there with you. I'm like, no, I don't have to go to church to experience God. I don't have to go to a church to experience spiritual. I
Right.
am spiritual. I am a 100% spiritual being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the best way for people to find you? I know we have your website right here. Is that the best way to find you and your resources?
Yes. Whether it's socials or my website, everything is Alison Hawsey. So if you look up my name, you put the @ sign in front of it, all of my socials will pop up. You can find them on my website. It has all the ways to connect with me. My email address is Allison@AllisonShoeHawsey. I mean, I've tried to make it as easy as possible to connect with people.
I hope you have really enjoyed this episode of Deeply Unscripted. I hope we talked about some things that enlightened you, some things that maybe challenged you, some things that made you want to dig deeper into your own intuition, whether you're male or female. So I want to thank Allison for coming on the show today. It's been a wonderful conversation, as it always is every time I've ever talked with her. So thank you for coming on the show, and we will see everyone next time.